Pope Francis is in Mozambique at the start of a three-nation tour of Southern Africa. He's praised the country's new peace deal and called for unity, meeting with the country's president and different religious groups. He's also offered his solidarity to the victims of two cyclones which devastated parts of the country earlier this year. After starting in Mozambique, the Pope will then head to the island nation of Madagascar, which is suffering from the effects of deforestation. The last leg of his tour will take him to Mauritius. The pontiff's key issues include maintaining peace and the climate crisis. It is his fourth visit to the continent.
A warm welcome for the Pope from these nuns in Mozambique's capital, Maputo.
I'm really happy because we're here to greet our shepherd, Pope Francis, the father of the whole Catholic Church. So all of us are here with all of the people of Mozambique to welcome our father with joy and enthusiasm.
He's coming to bring us hope, encouragement, reinvigorating our faith. It's a very important moment because we believe he's bringing a strong message of hope.
With it, a strong message of peace. The Pope's visit comes just weeks after Mozambique's government and opposition signed a landmark peace agreement. It's aimed at finally stopping the violence that has been recurring since the civil war officially ended almost 30 years ago. But as the Pope cautioned whilst meeting President Felipe Nyusi, peace is fragile and must be protected.
We must continue with determination, but without fanaticism, with courage, but without exaltation, with tenacity, but in an intelligent way, to promote peace and reconciliation, not the violence that brings only destruction.
The Pope's warning is a timely one. Elections are set to take place next month. Meeting with groups of different faiths, he called for unity and for better opportunities to ensure lasting peace in Mozambique.
For more on this, I'm joined in the studio by DW's religious affairs correspondent, Martin Gak. Hello, Martin.
Hi.
Many thanks for your time. So, the Pope is in Mozambique. How does this benefit ordinary Mozambicans?
I mean, essentially, there is a way in which international organizations of the size of the Vatican, they feel at least that they can actually put a lot of pressure into regional governments. And this is not only the case for Africa and Mozambique in particular, but this has been the case for sort of conflict areas, for instance, the Middle East, where the Vatican actually had a huge impact on the Syrian war and the process of bringing parts together for conversation, as well as in Latin America, for instance, the case of Cuba. In Mozambique in particular, John Paul II was the last pope to visit, and the Vatican has been very much involved in negotiating and trying to appease the parts and bringing to the table. The fact is that the country has relapsed into war now for 16 years, and I think that the hope of this pope and the hope of the entire diplomatic operation around this pope, because it's not really just one person, it's really an entire set of people, is that they can actually push the agenda, push the different parts, and put pressure on the government to actually develop and enforce a peace process.
Now, many expected him to visit cyclone Idai-affected areas, but he will not. Why not?
He will not. Unfortunately, I mean, it would be something that many of us would be very interested in seeing, because the areas in it are still very, very much in a state of essentially complete precariousness. It has not, I mean, reports at least are that there has not been sort of, widespread rebuild, and that there is still sort of massive problems. But the fact is that this is a pope that is traveling under very, very strict security rules, and it is essentially a security issue, the reason why this pope is not going to be leaving the capital.
Okay, so he's speaking about climate change, he's speaking about the country keeping the peace. How much weight does his words carry?
I mean, it's a very good question that is really very difficult to answer right now, but in a way, the Pope, and the way that this Vatican operates is that 6 months later, you can always look at what is that actually happened while the Pope was no longer there. I think that the process, essentially, they come in, they flex muscle, they put pressure, and then the diplomatic machine gets into the country and has conversations with government. So the fact is that we might see, for instance, in Madagascar, where there is a problem of deforestation, the Vatican pushing essentially the process of preservation. Of course, it's not going to happen overnight, and this is not a pope that particularly likes the spotlight. So very likely there will be a push to see reforms on the ground than to actually see great declarations tomorrow morning or the day after.
Okay. What other issues are we expecting him to talk about?
I mean, I think that one big issue for the Pope in Africa is the question of how different African churches had become very much conservative churches, and in a way there is a certain bifurcation, there is a certain distance at which they stand from what is the current policy of the Vatican, which has become much more progressive. At the same time, I mean, these are spots where the relation between different communities, particularly Christian community and Muslim community, are very important. This is a main topic for this Pope, inter-religion relations.
Martin Gak, DW's Religious Affairs correspondent, many thanks for your time.
My pleasure.